السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا ومرشدنا وحبيبنا ومطاعنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد، فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. صدق الله العظيم. Honorable ulama, respected brothers, mothers and sisters, let me commence this afternoon by asking you all a question. What is the most elusive thing in this world? What is that one thing that every single human is seeking but very few can actually find? What is that one thing over which thousands of books have been written, universities around the world are lecturing on it, scientists have been studying it for years, governments are appointing departments to overlook it, the UN has named a special day after it, Google Analytics tells us that people are searching for it. What is that one thing that everyone, wealthy, talented, powerful, achievers, leaders, they are all seeking it, but very few can actually find it. Very few can actually secure it. And the answer is happiness. Happiness. Every human wants to be happy. Who doesn't? And how many are actually truly happy? It's a very important discussion. It's perhaps one of the most important discussions that you can have with yourself. And why do I say that it's a discussion that you need to have with yourself? Because I'm going to say something repeatedly throughout my discourse this afternoon. Happiness is a choice. You have to choose to be happy. And I'll explain that as we go along. Happiness is a choice. You have to choose to be happy. So since we've indicated that happiness is a common goal that transcends the boundaries of race, culture, religion, everything. Every human wants to be happy. And since seeing we've already established that happiness is so elusive, I want to center my discourse this afternoon around three questions. We just want to try and answer very briefly three questions. The first is, why is happiness so elusive? Why is it so difficult to find? The second is, what is happiness? And the third, how do you choose to be happy? If happiness is a choice and you need to choose to be happy, how do you choose to be happy? So let's take the first one. Why is happiness so elusive? Why is it so difficult to find? And the simple short answer is, our approach is wrong. We are looking for happiness in the wrong places. We are looking for happiness in the next purchase, in bigger homes, better cars, cooler technology, more fashionable clothing, the better job, the next holiday, and even the next person. We're looking for happiness in the next. Every human thinks that when I get there, I'll be happy. And then when you get there, you think, no, the next achievement of mine, that is what will make me truly happy. So a young boy who's growing up in life, he says, when I get married, I'll be happy. And on the day of his nikah, he thinks, I'm truly happy. But research has shown that even when you reach major milestones in your life, the happiness lasts for a maximum of 6 months. That state of euphoria and elation. So you see him here in the masjid, When they say nakahtuha wa qabiltuha, he's all smiles. He's advertising for Colgate. But then he goes for honeymoon and he's on the moon, and 6 months later, life stabilizes. That's the system of Allah. So what does he think? No, when I get children, I'll be happy. And when the first child comes, oh, perhaps happier than the day he got married. Because wife can come and go, but the child is your child. And when the second child comes, he says, these children are making me grey. So where then do you look for your happiness? He says, no, when I have my own house. And then when he has his own house for 6 months, he feels, okay, now I'm secure in life, and life stabilizes again. And that's the system that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has given you. So what happens? You get caught chasing the next and the next and the next, even though gambling is haram in Islam, but because in the world that we live in, and they give these examples of people from rags to riches. The man was living in a shack, he wins the lottery, and he's got now so much of money, he can't spend it in his lifetime. Even after 6 months, that man's life stabilizes. That man's life normalizes. You win the Ballon d'Or and you're the footballer of the year. After 1 year, 6 months, that's why you see so much of depression and suicide amongst the most rich, famous and popular people in the world. And that's where we make a mistake. Because unhappy people focus on what they don't have. Happy people focus on what they do have. Unhappy people fret over what happened in the past, and they are overly concerned as to what will happen in the future, to what extent will the rand drop. Happy people live in the present. Islam teaches us, you learn from the past, you prepare to some extent for the future, but enjoy what Allah has given you right now, right here, this moment. Then you'll be happy. If you constantly, my mother-in-law 20 years ago said this to me, and let's bring a frown to your face now. You worried about where your great-grandchild will live. Hey, will you even get to a point that you'll see your great-grandchild? You don't know. So you learn from the past, you prepare for the future, but you have to focus on what Allah has given you right here, right now, otherwise you'll never be happy. So in short, that's the answer to the first question. Why is happiness elusive? Why is it that most of us can't find it? Because our approach to happiness is wrong. We're looking for happiness in the next thing, and we're looking for happiness in terms of trying to fix the past or preparing too much for the future. Let's go on to the next question. What is happiness? Okay, we're talking about it. What is happiness? How would you define it? And the definition I'm giving you now is a definition that's combined of both what the scholars have said and the psychologists have said. And the psychologists have merely backed up what the scholars have said, because the scholars have taken it from the ultimate sources, the Quran and the Sunnah. Happiness is the consistent mental and emotional, spiritual state of well-being. Let me say it one more time. Happiness is the consistent mental, emotional and spiritual state of well-being. Happiness has more to do with your internal conditions than your external circumstances. It's the internal feeling of contentment and satisfaction. That's why a person sleeping on the street corner will sleep and he will snore like a John Deere tractor. And the millionaire who's in his palatial home on his pillow top mattress is suffering from insomnia. Because happiness has more to do with your internal state of mind than your external conditions. There's a quote that I read, and what an apt quote it was. What an apt quote. They say, happiness is not a destination that you arrive at, it is a manner of traveling. Happiness is not a destination that you arrive at. It's not a particular goal, a particular target, or a particular objective in your life. It's the manner of traveling. It's how you live your life every single day. So happiness is based on your decision to be happy. You have to choose to be happy by making the correct approach. You need to stop searching for happiness. This is a great irony. The greatest cause of unhappiness is when people are searching for happiness in the next thing or in the next person or in everything else. Happiness is not out there. It's here. In our hearts, in our minds, and in our soul. You just need to choose it. You need to opt to be happy. So that very briefly answers the second question. That what is happiness? Let's move on to the third. How do you choose to be happy? How do you choose to be happy? Well, by embracing the happiness portfolio. Or let me put it in simpler words. By securing the ingredients of happiness. What are they? 4 things. Faith, iman. The second, family. The third, community. And the fourth, you yourself. These 4 things, iman, family, community, and you yourself. That is the 4 pillars of happiness, the 4 ingredients of happiness. Those 4 things make up the portfolio of happiness. Let's quickly run through each one of the 4. Faith. What I'm going to say to you now, if you only remember this one statement, then my coming year would have been successful and you listening here would have been beneficial. This one statement. If Allah is happy with you, you will be happy. And if Allah is unhappy with you, you will never be happy. If Allah is happy with you, you will be happy. If Allah is unhappy with you, you will never be happy. That's why faith and iman is the first and most important ingredient in the portfolio of happiness. Live your life in a way where you are pleasing to Allah. Allah will be pleased with you and you'll be happy irrespective of your conditions and circumstances. And achieve every goal, every target and every objective in your life. But in the process, if you displease your Creator, you will never know what is true happiness. You may bluff yourself into thinking you're happy, but that will be merely superficial happiness. Islam, brothers, mothers and sisters, has not come to make our life difficult. Many times we think that all of these rules and regulations are there to restrict us. In reality, it's there to free us, to unshackle us, to make us understand that we must not become slaves to dunya, slaves to temptation, slaves to targets and goals and objectives. We must rather give our heart to Allah. And when you give your heart to Allah, then you'll understand what is true happiness. If you look at the concepts of our deen has taught us a lot about happiness. I'll just give you 1 or 2 quick examples in passing. Our deen teaches us to practice optimism. How? Ajaban li amril mu'min. Famous hadith. If something good happens to you, make shukr. If something bad happens to you, make sabr. On this one statement of the Prophet ﷺ, you can write encyclopedias on psychology. If something good happens to you, be grateful to Allah. If something bad happens to you, be patient. Because life is about ebbs and flows, ups and downs. You'll have your high time and you'll have your low time. If you can embrace this hadith, then you know the secret to life. Another concept of our deen that teaches us how to be happy. Islam says, if you want to compare, then know how to compare. When it comes to matters of dunya, always look at those who have less. Shaykh Sadi came to the masjid to ask Allah for shoes. When he saw a man without legs, he said, Allah, forget the shoes. Right? So when it comes to matters of dunya, always look at those who have less. If you constantly look at those who have more, there'll always be someone who has more than you. You'll never be content, you'll never be happy. You'll be number 2 on the Forbes list. You'll still work 18 hours a day because you want to be number 1. And then when you reach number 1, you'll work 20 hours a day because you want to stay number 1. That's how life works. Our deen teaches us how to be happy. Practice forgiveness. All that baggage that you're carrying, all that hurt and pain, it's causing more difficult to you than the person who's responsible for the hurt and pain. Forgive for the pleasure of Allah, not for that person's pleasure. Our deen teaches us to be happy. How? Have expectations in Allah alone. Not even in your spouse or your children. The closer the person is to you, the more you have expectation, the greater your disappointment. Humans will always disappoint you. Allah will never disappoint you. You bring up your child for 20 years in the hope that my child will do this and that. And if they don't, then the depression is a never-ending one. So whatever you do, do for the pleasure of Allah. Whatever you do, do for the pleasure of Allah and expect only from Allah, and Allah will help you. So the teachings of our deen are not there to restrict us and make us unhappy. It's there to liberate us and to facilitate happiness. Happiness, again I remind you brothers, is a choice. You have to choose to be happy. Let's move on to the second ingredient. The first is faith and iman. The second, family. And this is so sad. In this rat race, in this life of instant gratification and material progress, we have sacrificed our greatest assets. And that is our relationship with especially those who are near and dear to us. It's not that we don't love them. It's not that we're not doing for them. Why are you working so hard? Why are you amassing so much wealth? Because you want to provide for your family. A man will do more for his children than he will do for himself. But we have lost sight of priority. We have fallen, our relationships have fallen into a state of emotional neglect. And emotional neglect is like a cancer that eats away at that fabric of the relationship. Today we live in homes, but we live like we're living in hotels. You're eating the same food. You're sharing the same roof. You are there at similar times, but emotionally you're disconnected. Husband and wife are sitting on the same bed, in the same room, in the same house, literally 20 centimeters away from each other. But he's laughing at his WhatsApp and she's laughing at her WhatsApp. They're not talking to each other, let alone laughing with each other. That's the degree of emotional neglect that has settled into our marriages, our relationships with our children, our siblings, our parents. And why? Not because we don't love them. No, because we are working so hard to invest for them that we are forgetting to invest in them. It is more important for you to invest in your family than it is to invest for your family. It is more important for you to invest in your family than it is to invest for your family. Nobody has time, you have to make time. Nobody is busier than Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, but he made the time to play with the grandchildren, to interact lovingly, informally with his spouses. He made the time. You need to take time to listen. They say if you really want to be happy, spend that 5 minutes extra with somebody that you truly love and who loves you. They did a survey of men in their 50s in the corporate world, the successful CEOs and directors, and they asked them, now that in your mid-50s, what is your greatest regret in life? The overwhelming majority responded by saying, we spend too much time in the office and too little time with the family. You work your whole life to educate your child, and that's good and noble, to provide a home for your child, but the day when you have time for your child, now your child would be in a different state in their own life, they won't have time for you. You sacrifice time with your wife beyond that which is reasonable. Now when you retire, you want to spend time with her, but the two of you have drifted apart. There's no longer that emotional connection. Don't get married to the job. The company always makes decisions in the best interest of the company. Whether it be worldly organizations or religious organizations, you'll be the imam for 30 years. When that young upstart can come and read a little smarter than you, they'll usher you into a retirement with a nice ceremony and a nice party and say, right, retirement supper for our local imam, or for the person who worked 30 years in the company. Now you feel betrayed. Now you feel betrayed. But hey, you had to have that balance in life. You know what's the irony? The people we love the most, we treat them the worst. At work you'll be tolerant because he's your boss or because she's a client. But at home you'll unpack on your wife the stresses of the job because she's got no option but to take it. The people that we love the most, we treat them the worst, but that compromises our happiness. Happiness is a choice. You have to make an active choice. You have to choose to be happy. So that's the second in the portfolio of happiness. After Iman, family. The third, I don't have much time, so I'll just say it to you in one sentence. Community. People who only run after their own goals and objectives and happiness in life will never be truly happy. You'll only be truly happy if you live to bring happiness to others. The greatest happiness that you can enjoy as an individual is when you bring the smile to somebody else's face. Take a simple example. Were you happier the day you bought a car for yourself or the day you bought a car for your son? Which was the day that made you happier? If you live a selfish, individualistic lifestyle, you'll never be happy. Allah is not created us that way. You'll only be truly happy if you live your life in a way when you're bringing happiness to others. And the last in the four, you yourself. This obsession with material progress, this chasing and chasing. We are on the treadmill of life. You know the treadmill, you run and you run and you sweat and your knees want to give in. I try it now and then, not all that often. But you're not going anywhere. It's the same routine. We've become like machines. You know, you flick the switch in the morning, the machine does the same thing. Day in and day. Study our lives. We have become like machines. We are stuck in our routine. The hedonistic lifestyle, we are stuck on the treadmill of life. And then life becomes boring and it becomes depressive. Why? We don't get adequate rest. We don't live organized lives like our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. We don't eat healthy. We don't keep fit. They say a 10-minute walk. A 10-minute walk will immediately boost your levels of happiness. We don't connect with nature. We're living in a concrete jungle. You don't connect with nature. It has an impact on your psyche, on your state of mind. We don't experience new things. We don't explore with variety. I'll just give you one anecdote very quickly before we conclude to highlight this point about why we need to take care of ourselves. It's a hypothetical scenario, but it's so profound. They say there was a man, he got a job. He had to chop trees. So he wanted to impress the boss. The first day he chopped 15 trees. So what he did, what you and I would do, the next day he worked harder. Let me get a bigger bonus. He only managed 13. The day after 10, the day after 7, it came down to 3. He comes with a great degree of embarrassment in front of his boss. But his boss was not a boss, he was a leader. He didn't fire him. He didn't tell him you're not working hard enough. He said, you're working harder, but your output is less. You know why? When last did you sharpen your axe? You're chopping and you're chopping and you're chopping harder. When last did you sharpen your axe? You can only look after others if you first look after yourself. You can only look after others if you first look after yourself. Let me conclude with the verse I recited right in my introduction. The Quranic formula of happiness. Allah says, "Man amila salihan min dhakarin aw untha wa huwa mu'min." Whoever leads a good, righteous life that pleases Allah, male or female, as long as you are a believer, فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. Allah says, I'll give you a content, a pure, a wholesome, and an enjoyable life. Not only in this world, but in the year after as well. Such a person who leads such a life, you will be embraced on the day of Qiyamah. Ya ayyatuha an-nafsul mutma'inna. O contented soul, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. Return to your Allah in a state where Allah is happy with you and you are happy with Allah. فَدْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي. Allah will then say, enter with my special bondsman into Jannah. وَدْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. And now enjoy this happiness for eternity. May Allah grant us happiness in this world. May Allah keep us happy in our graves. And may Allah bless us with ultimate happiness in the year after. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ وَسَلَّمَ وَبَارَكَ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.